Hi, everyone. Hope everybody's doing good out there. Today we're looking at the game from the Isle of Man tournament, round four between Grandmaster Rustam Kasimdzhanov with the white pieces and world champion Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces. Let's get right into it. So E4 from Kasimdzhanov, or Kasimdzhanov as some say it, and knight f6. And this is the reason why I had to get into this game right away, is because is another rare opening by Magnus Carlsen. We saw round three, round two rather, I think it was against Perlstein, um, where Magnus had the black pieces and played the modern defense with move 1g6. So Magnus is really mixing it up, and he is really showing true mastery in chess, as he is simply just playing any system. And that's what it's kind of reminded me of Fischer. Fischer used to play like b3, different openings that his opponents did not expect him to play. Alekhine defense, things like that. And we see Carlsen playing this move knight c6. For those of you who don't know, this is known as the Nimzovich defense. Again, named after Aaron Nimzovich. And of course, as with most of these type of openings, Nimzovich wasn't the first to play it, but actually, for those interested in a little history, this opening was first kind of advocated by a German master named Edward Fischer in about 1831. So Nimzovich, saw it and then subjected it to study, and he came to the conclusion that it was okay. And then after him, other masters experimented with it, and it never became like really popular, but it's definitely solid enough, as you'll see in this game. Um, Another line that kind of is pretty similar is this opening also: d4, knight f6, c4, and knight c6. Some call it the two knights tango. It used to be called the Kevitz Trakovic defense, after the early um, practitioners of that defense. So here we have e4 and knight c6. Let's go back. Okay, so I think the basic idea, or I'll say the knock on it, is that most masters believe that the defense is, leads to cramped positions and too much patient handling. So that's not really a knock, but it's kind of like what it's not a bad defense. I'll put it like that. But you can get in some cramped positions where you have to do a lot of maneuvering and things like that. And hey, that's right up Carlsen's alley. Also, what's interesting about this opening, that if white plays, say, a move like knight f3, then it's easy to transpose if black wanted to into main lines. After e5, for instance, you could go into a Scotch or whatever, Rui Lopez. So Magnus here plays the move d6 because it seemed like Kasimdzhanov didn't really want anything to do here, and he maybe he was perhaps looking for some type of transposition, but Magnus kept it a true Nimzovich defense, and kudos to him for taking this chance. So Kasimdzhanov just takes control of the center. Again, this is all theory. you know, what little theory there is on here. Let's give you a little history. The move Bishop G4 was played in the old game between Ruben Fine and Vladas Makinis way back in Hastings, 1938. And the game went like this. And you can see that white has more space in the center, but it's going to take them a long time to realize any type of tangible advantage. And knight BD2. And the game is equal. Again, white has a little bit more space, but the position kind of looks like sort of like has a Rui Lopez feel with the position, of these pawns and this bishop here. This bishop has made it outside of the pawn chain. But again, the cost is, a little bit of space in the center. So there's some like hybrid features going on here. But again, black is far from lost. And this is a good opening if you want to try to avoid preparation, because at the knight c6 is really, white doesn't have too many options. I mean, black can control a lot of the action in the game. Even after d4, black can play d4, d5, or e5. So for example, d5, e5, play moves like f6 if he wants to, or even e6 going into this closed type position. And if you don't want to play d5, you can just play e5 here. And you've probably seen this before, right? And queen f6. Again, it's hard for white to show any kind of big advantage here. Maybe in this position somewhat, but again, black can definitely improve. I'm just giving some examples. Many times after e5, white will play d5, and then you'll see play go like this. There's many different trajectories that this can go into. And black is okay here also. So these players went like this. d4. Kasimdzhanov played very classically. He took some space after knight f6. And Carlsen just dropped his knight back. Of course, after this pawn moves, then you have these squares to think about. g6, all logical by Magnus. Bishop g7. And now you have pretty much like a modern or Pirc defense. But I guess you would have to ask yourself if the transposition into the modern or Pirc's defense favors white or black here. Because black has played this move d5. And weaken the dark squares somewhat, even though he gains a little space. These are the type of questions that are pretty interesting. At the c4 is black's move. Black has this opportunity to play bishop g4 and trade off this knight. Sometimes you can play a move like h3, for example, before pushing the pawn to d5. So it's interesting, the transposition here. Magnus castles, knight c3, and there it is, bishop g4, bishop e2, and knight fd7. Again, after provoking that weakness, the advance in the center, the blacks' plan is to take over on the dark square. So all of these moves are related. For instance, the bishop putting pressure on this knight, which in turn is helping to defend the e5 square. Okay. And anytime opponent gets a huge center, it's not always an advantage for the player with the center. It depends. If the center becomes immobile and it's easily attackable, then it just becomes a big albatross and liability for the player who has the center. So that's the battle that's going on right now. Is Kasimdzhanov's center favorable to him, or is it a liability? So both players are trying to, impose their will on each other as far as the center is concerned. Of course, Kasimdzhanov knows this. He's a strong grandmaster, and Carlsen also knows this. So you will see that battle going on. One player, the white player, trying to make his center like an overwhelming tidal wave and just wash black off the board, drive his pieces back, right? And we'll see black trying to poke holes in the center, fix the pawns, and then slowly break it down, and then come up with the positional advantage. So bishop g5, a5. So again, we see some prophylactic play by Magnus here, securing this square, perhaps for either this knight right here on d7 or this knight later on, perhaps after knight a6 or a knight to d7 and then c5. The second benefit of the move a5 is it slows down queenside play from white if he would choose to go in that direction. So far, white has not really shown his hand, so to speak, as far as if he's going to try to attack on the king side or if he's going to attack on the queen side, or is he going to try to attack on both sides of the board. But right here is a prophylactic move, which kind of black is securing squares for his pieces. Knight drops back to d2, and with that we see the offer of the trade of pieces here. We see Kasimdzhanov preserving this knight and also making it possible for an advance of this f pawn. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more information to as what white might be trying to do here. Another possibility is some line is getting this knight up to d4. Okay, but if he was going to do that, he could have just did it here. So bishops are traded, and now c6. Okay, so now Magnus starts to chip away at the center. Okay, so he's provoked the advance to weaken the dark squares, and now he's chipping away, at this large center. King h1 again. Now we're getting more information, right? First we had the knight going to d2. Now we have the king on h1, right? So now, if we're black, we can say that white is leaning toward some type of king side attack. All right. a4 by Magnus. So now he's taking more space on the queen side. All right, and besides, he has also tipped his hand as by showing his desire to attack on the queen side. So now he's gaining more space on the queen side with a4, and he's already played the move c6 with the intentions of opening up the c file. Okay, and now all of that in combination with the bishop on g7. All right, and so now we see further, you know, a little bit further as far as what the players are trying to do in this particular position. Right now, this bishop on g5 is kind of annoying because a piece has to be kept back to defend this pawn, and that's one of the reasons why it's there. This queen would love to be able to come out to b6 or c7 or something, but this pawn has to be taken care of first on e7. a3, and a3 stops the move a3 from black, of course, undermining the defense of the knight right here, which would be brutalized, you know, in the event of this pawn being exchanged like that. However, as you can see, weakens the square a little bit, and that also falls in with black's desires of attacking on the queen side. Of course, if you can provoke weakness in the opponent's position where you're in the sector where you're attacking, that's good. This is the same principle that's used in conducting king side attacks. You know, you like when your opponent plays h6 or a move like f6 or g6 to try to defend this king side, because that's one more hook that you have whereby you can pry open the position. Knight c5 finally. So now the knight comes here to c5, and then with this weakness here, we can see you know how you know, black's plan is coming to life. So you will have to ask yourself in this position, whose plan is more serious. You know, right now it seems like black is ahead as far as conducting his plan. He has a plan at a4, pawn sitting on c6, knight on c5, bishop powerfully posted here on g7. So it seems like black's plan is going a little faster than white's. White hasn't really started anything yet on the king side, and it's kind of dangerous because he has his big center, but Carlsen has done a good job in keeping him occupied with defending the center, maintaining the center. He's advancing the pawns in the center with d5. So we can say at this moment that black definitely equalized, because his queen side play is serious, and white hasn't even gotten off the schneid yet as far as like an attack. You know, it's not like his pawn is on f4 and he has e5 played already or something like that. So white has some catching up to do. And there it is, f4. And again, like I said, watching your opponent's early moves, you gotta pay attention to, you know, always ask yourself what's the possible ideas, because you're not always gonna be able to tell, because especially with strong players, because they're good at concealing their intentions, you know. And you know, you have to put the moves together. Like, okay, he did knight, you know, knight to d2. He did knight to king h1. Okay, he already has 3 pawns in the center. Okay, you know, and ask yourself, what's the possible ideas? And this is how you know the opponent's gonna do, you know, have to attack on a certain type of, you know, in a certain type of way. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, you have to make sure you have a plan, and then you got to ask yourself, okay, can I ignore his plan and just go on with my plan, or do I have to take some prophylactic measures to slow his plan down and then go on with my plan? And this is what you see in this game. For example, Kasimdzhanov played the move a3. He doesn't want to play that move, but he deemed Carlsen's plan serious enough to where he had to play that and weaken this b3 square in the process. And now he goes on with his plan of f4 because he wants to assault white on the king side. Knight bd7. The knight comes out. And now white has to, black has to make sure to keep an eye on this square. Okay, so we have some Benoni type themes here, right? Of keeping an eye on the e5 square, as well as this bishop having the pin on this pawn. Now the knight returns f3 again, the idea of dominating this e5 square. It's common theme in these type of positions. So now you see a battle for e5. Okay, so Carlsen is taking time to prevent these, important moves from happening. Notice that he's willing to just give up this pawn at this point because tactically it's feasible. For example, if bishop takes e7, rook f e8, and then let's say he tried to just bump right out. Bishop takes c3, and then the white's center would just collapse. The b takes, and then knight takes e4. This is why Kasimdzhanov just simply played rook ad1. And now rook a e8, f5, again a common theme in these type of positions. Give up this square in this give and taking chess. So he's willing to give up this square in order to open up the king side here. Queen a5. Okay, the knight was threatened there, and subsequently, white has to keep an eye on this e4 square. Knight f6. So now we see two pieces on there. Knight d2. So Carlsen's doing a good job keeping Kasimdzhanov occupied with the defense of the center. Knight cd7. Knight goes back. Knight back. And it looks like Kasimdzhanov wants a draw already. Knight cd7. Knight f3. And then Carlsen's the one that switches it up. So that was a psychological moment there where Kasimdzhanov would have took the draw right there, basically saying, I don't have nothing for you, I'm ready to go home or whatever. But Magnus is like, nope. Once he felt that kind of that fear or whatever, he's like, okay, now I'm gonna come get him. Now Magnus goes back to his original plan, right? He takes care of his prophylactic measures. He puts some pressure on the center. Now he goes back to his original plan of attacking on the queen side. Knight b4. Rook f e8, protecting this pawn right here. Bishop d2, queen c7. And Kasimdzhanov takes. And basically, this is a victory for Magnus, as Kasimdzhanov is he's breaking down his own center. Right? So he had this big center at the beginning, but now after playing b takes c6, it's like he's lost some authority in the center, and he still has the weaknesses to boot. All right, bringing Magnus's b pawn into the mix now. Bishop c3, e5, and this again puts another question to white here, because now if he takes en passant, it's like he just, his whole idea from the beginning of taking the big center is refuted. And if he doesn't take, like he didn't right here, then Magnus is just simply just doing great in this position. And knight d2 doesn't really do anything. It's a pure defensive maneuver, and all white has to worry about is this pawn right here. Excuse me, all black has to worry about is this pawn on d6. Again, utilizing the square. Knight c5, that was weakened earlier by d5. Keeping the constant pressure on the center. Rook f3. So again, Kasimdzhanov, he goes back to his original plan, trying to make something happen on the king side. He had ideas of doubling up the rooks over here, opening up the file, sometimes even moving the rook laterally along the third rank. Knight to h5. Again, the dark squares are a big problem. Okay. g3. So now he has to make a pawn move to make sure that Magnus can't access f4. Great job putting the bishop on an open diagonal. Notice that this diagonal was blocking Magnus's bishop. There's the doubling of rooks on the f file. Queen e7. Knight d3. Of course, Magnus is not worried about the exchange of two rooks for the queen or whatever. You know, after some nonsense like this. You know, black is just fine here. So knight d3. Knight takes d3. Rook takes d3. Knight f6. Just constantly keeping the eye on this center here. Rook goes back again with this hopefully one day to pressure on the f file. So rook f8, c5, and now Magnus pushes in the center, and this is good, just great play by Magnus. Again, he's just been constantly antagonizing white in the center. You know, constantly putting pressure on e4, and just, you know, slowly chipping at the white center. So takes, and now look who has the center. Before, earlier it was white, and this is modern. This is like modern play, you know, at its best. You know, the hyper moderns of the 20s, Richard Reddy and those guys would have loved this. You know, seeing how white started out with the big, you know, the big 3-pawn center, and now it's black who has the center. And move 36, and dangerous pawn center at that. Okay, so after knight d7, the bishop attacked, and the position takes on this open character, and black has this nice pass pawn in the middle of the board. This pawn on c5 is doubly attacked, as well as a knight here on d2, and this bishop here. So it's a good game for Magnus. The capture brings a third attacker, and that pawn just drops. Little tactics here, trying to exploit this pin. Bishop takes, and now we're into this rook endgame. And again, good play by Magnus. This rook endgame is advantageous to black, but it's hard to win these type of rook endgames. Magnus gets rid of, you know, gives up this pawn, hoping to be able to escort this pawn down the to become a queen. And good defense by Kasimdzhanov. Okay, so king d6, king e3, and Magnus tries to make something happen here. Even goes up a pawn for a move. But white's defense is just on point here, and he's not able to convert this rook ending. So this is good defense by white. This is called the 6th rank defense, by the way. I'm sorry. Yeah, yes, actually it is, because the study was done by Felidor in 1777. Um, it's called the 6th rank defense, and it's basically, that's because the it's done with black in the same position as white is, basically. And this is essential defense to know in the rook endgames. It's a dead draw here. There's having this back rank guarded like this, and then if black were able to get past, excuse me, I'm sorry, once black, I'll get rid of that graphic there. If black ever pushed this pawn forward in this position, then this rook would just shoot to the back and just start checking from behind. So it's really difficult to I mean, you would like not have to know the ending to lose this game. So this is why the players drew. This is like well known. So I hope you like that. Please subscribe and comment, and I'll see you on the next video.